Doubtful.
Doubtful.
Prospects for a lasting peace remain doubtful.
It was doubtful whether the patient would survive the operation.
It is doubtful that the missing airman will ever be found. It is doubtful that the missing airman will ever be found.
Everything's going to be all right. You'll see. Jenny looked doubtful.
I'm still doubtful whether I should accept this job.
At first we were doubtful about employing Charlie. At first we were doubtful about employing Charlie.
Already the whole scheme was looking increasingly doubtful. Here the tap water is of doubtful quality.
Doubting Thomas.
Doubting Thomas.
Doubtless.
Doubtless.
Doubtless there would be lots of rumours.
Douche.
Douche.
Dough.
Dough.
Donut.
Donut.
Doughty.
Dowdy.
Doughy.
Doughy.
Doula. Doula. Dower.
Dower.
Douse.
Douse.
Dove. Dove.
Dovecot.
Dovecot.
Dovetail.
Dovetail.
My vacation plans dovetail nicely with Joyce's.
Dovish.
Dovish.
Dowager.
Dowager.
The Dowager Duchess of Devonshire.
Dowdy.
Dowdy.
A dowdy dress. Dowel.
Dowel.
Dowling.
Dowling.
Dow Jones Index.
Down.
Down.
David bent down to tie his shoelace.
Get down off the table. Tears were streaming down my face.
The sun was going down and it would soon be dark. They came running down the stairs. She stood on a balcony looking down into the courtyard.
Glancing down the list of runners, I noticed a familiar name.
Her hair came down to her waist.
Ken fell asleep face down on the couch.
We heard the sound of laughter down below.
The bathroom is down those stairs. Halfway down the page there was the item I was looking for.
Please sit down.
I think I'll go and lie down for a while.
A young man came hurrying down the street.
She looked down the road to see if anyone was coming.
There is a pleasant little cafe bar 100 yards down the road.
The bus stop is a bit further down on the left-hand side. They drove all the way down from Boston to Miami.
They sailed down the east coast of Africa.
Now he's bought a villa down south.
A trip down Mexico way. She's just gone down to the shops. I saw her down at the station this morning.
Chunks of ice came floating down the river.
The coffin lid had been nailed down.
Keep your speed down.
House prices have come down in recent months. Turn the radio down.
Sharif cut his report down to only 3 pages.
Swindon was 6 points down at one stage.
I'll write down the address for you.
Start by jotting down a few ideas.
Let's put you down as self-employed.
Purvis is down for the 200-metre freestyle event. Purvis is down for the 200-metre freestyle event. Purvis is down for the 200-metre freestyle event.
We've already put his name down for nursery school.
I've got you down to do the table decorations.
Person whose words and actions have inspired millions of people down the centuries.
This knowledge was handed down in the family from father to son.
The story had been passed down the generations for 1,000 years.
Traditions that have come down to us from medieval times.
A top-quality freezer for only £20 down and £5 a week for a year. I want you to wash my car down.
Meg's been very ill and can't keep her food down.
He gulped down the coffee.
Tim's been feeling down.
It's down to me to make sure that everyone is happy.
Chris's success is all down to him.
We're down to our last $5.
Everyone uses the cafeteria, from the managing director down to the office boy.
The plans were all complete down to the last detail. Jane's gone down with flu.
Down with the government.
Why is Mark so down on her at the moment? Why is Mark so down on her at the moment?
Sarah came down from Oxford in 1966.
Well, you've passed your second test, so it's 2 down and 4 more to go.
He downed the coffee in one gulp.
O'Malley downed his opponent in the first round.
For some reason, Malcolm had a down on the whole teaching profession.
Down.
Down.
Downstairs.
Downriver.
To downgrade a job.
To downsize a company.
The downside of a situation.
Down-market products.
Down and out.
Down and out.
A down-and-out actor.
Down at heel.
Down at heel.
The town today is a shabby, down-at-heel place.
Downbeat.
Downbeat.
Al was surprisingly downbeat about the party.
Downcast.
Downcast.
Penelope sat silently, her eyes downcast.
Downer.
Downer.
The weather was a bit of a downer.
What's up with Ruth? She's been on a downer all week.
Downfall.
Downfall.
The scandal that led to the president's downfall.
An addiction to gambling that proved to be her downfall.
Downgrade.
Downgrade.
Police often downgrade the seriousness of violence against women in the home.
Hurricane Bob has been downgraded to a tropical storm.
Downhearted.
Downhearted.
When no replies came, I began to feel downhearted.
Downhill.
Downhill.
I was going downhill and my brakes failed.
Grandma fell and broke her leg, and she went downhill quite rapidly after that.
Downhill skiing.
It's a long walk back, but at least it's all downhill. The worst is over. It's all downhill from here.
Down home.
Down home.
Down home family recipes.
Downing Street.
Downing Street.
Downing Street declined to comment on the allegations.
Downlighter. Downlighter.
Download.
Download.
Games that can be downloaded free from the internet.
We've got reviews and downloads of the latest business software. We've got reviews and downloads of the latest business software.
Downloadable.
Downloadable.
Downmarket.
Downmarket.
Downmarket tabloid newspapers. The company wanted to break away from its traditional downmarket image.
He was accused of taking the radio station down market in order to compete with commercial stations.
Down payment.
Down payment.
We've almost got enough money to make a down payment on a house.
Downplay.
Downplay.
White House officials attempted to downplay the president's role in the affair. White House officials attempted to downplay the president's role in the affair.
Downpour.
Downpour.
Downright.
Downright.
Jed's downright lazy.
It's downright disgusting. That's a downright lie.
Downriver.
Downriver.
The bridge was another mile downriver.
Downscale.
Downscale.
Downshift.
Downshift.
Downside.
Downside.
Digital cell phones offer more security, but the downside is that they have less power. Digital cell phones offer more security, but the downside is that they have less power.
The downside of the book is that it is written in a rather boring style. The downside of the book is that it is written in a rather boring style.
Downsize.
Downsize.
The airline has downsized its workforce by 30%.
Downspout.
Downspout.
Down syndrome.
Down syndrome.
Downstage.
Downstage.
Downstairs.
Downstairs.
Rosie ran downstairs to answer the door.
Charles was downstairs in the kitchen.
A downstairs bathroom.
We have still got to paint the downstairs.
Downstate.
Downstate.
A downstate judge was called in to hear the case.
Downstream.
Downstream.
A boat drifting downstream.
Downtime.
Downtime.
Often, during semesters, you have downtime when you can do some exercise.
Downtime activities for teachers.
Down to earth.
Down to earth.
Fran's a friendly, down-to-earth person. A chef with a down-to-earth approach to cooking.
Downtown.
Downtown.
I have to go downtown later.
Downtown restaurants.
She works for a law firm in downtown Miami.
Downtrodden.
Downtrodden.
Downturn.
Downturn.
America's current economic downturn.
A downturn in the auto industry.
Downward.
Downward.
A gentle downward slope. Share prices continued their downward trend. She was caught in a downward spiral of drink and drugs.
Downwardly compatible.
Downwardly mobile.
Downwardly mobile.
Downwards.
Downwards.
Nina glanced downwards.
Hold out your hands with your palms facing downwards.
The body was lying face downwards.
The death toll was later revised downwards to 689.
Everyone from the chairman downwards is taking a pay cut.
Downy.
Downy.
The baby's downy head. Downwind.
Downwind.
Dowry.
Dowry.
Dows.
Douse.
Dowser.
Dowser.
Dowsing rod.
Dowsing rod.
Doyen.
Doyen.
The doyen of sports commentators.
Doyenne.
Doyenne.
The doyen of piano teachers in the city.
Doze.
Doze.
Grandad was dozing in his chair.
I must have dozed off.
Dozen.
Dozen.
A dozen eggs.
The number of deaths has risen to more than 24.
Dozens of people were killed.
Chris, Helen, and half a dozen others went on holiday together.
A dozen or so cars were parked near the entrance.
I've heard this story a dozen times before.
She's had dozens of boyfriends.
We collected dozens and dozens of shells on the beach.
Dozy.
Dozy.
Those kids are really dozy sometimes.
DP.
DP.
DFill.
DFill.
DPI.
DPI.
DPP.
DPP.
Doctor.
Doctor.
88 Park Drive.
Drab.
Drab.
The walls were painted a drab green.
People forced to live grey, drab existences in ugly towns.
Drachma.
Drachma.
Draconian.
Draconian.
Draconian measures to control population growth.
Draft.
Draft.
The rough draft of his new novel.
I read the first draft and thought it was very good.
All parties eventually approved the final draft of the peace treaty.
Eva's busy drafting her speech for the conference.
My dad was 18 when he got drafted into the army.
Craigwell was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks.
Extra staff were drafted in to deal with the Christmas rush.
Hundreds of police have been drafted into the area.
Draft board.
Draft board.
Draft card.
Draft card.
Draft dodger.
Draft dodger.
Draftee.
Draftee.
Drafter.
Drafter.
Draftsman.
Draftsman.
Drafty.
Drafty.
Drag.
Drag.
Inga managed to drag the table into the kitchen.
He grabbed her arm and dragged her into the room.
I dragged myself out of bed and into the bathroom.
Can you drag yourself away from the TV for a minute?
Mum dragged us to a classical music concert.
You can drag and drop text like this.
Friday afternoons always drag.
Your coat's dragging in the mud.
The authorities are dragging their feet over banning cigarette advertising. The authorities are dragging their feet over banning cigarette advertising. The police are dragging the lake for the missing girl's body. The party will have to be dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century.
A bird dragging its broken wing.
Joe's been ill for weeks now. It's really dragging him down.
Declining prices for aluminium have dragged down the company's earnings.
Don't let them drag you down to their level.
I'm sorry to drag you into this mess.
Don't drag my past into this.
An expensive court battle that could drag on for years.
Neither of them wanted to drag the divorce out longer than they had to. Neither of them wanted to drag the divorce out longer than they had to.
Police finally dragged a confession out of him.
Why do you have to drag that up again?
Those children have been dragged up, not brought up.
Don't be such a drag. Come to the party.
It's a real drag having to travel so far to work every day.
Any slowdown in the economy is going to be a drag on the president's re-election campaign.
Frank took a drag on his cigarette.
The whole performance is done in drag.
The car's rounded edges reduce drag.
Our hotel is right on the main drag.
Dragnet.
Dragnet.
Dragon.
Dragon.
Dragonfly.
Dragonfly.
Dragoon.
Dragoon.
Monica was dragooned into being on the committee.
Drag queen.
Drag queen.
Drag race.
Drag race.
Dragster.
Dragster.
Drain.
Drain.
The swimming pool is drained and cleaned every winter. Brad drained all the oil from the engine. Brad drained all the oil from the engine.
Can you drain the spaghetti, please?
I watched the bath water drain away.
Open ditches drain very efficiently.
She washed up and left the dishes to drain.
This plant needs rich, well-drained soil. Working with children all day really drains you.
Huge imports were draining the country's currency reserves. When the verdict was read out, all the colour drained from Zelda's cheeks.
Hannah drained her mug in one gulp.
I watched the light drain away.
Sally felt her anger drain away.
After cooking the meat, drain off the excess fat.
The flood was caused by a blocked drain. There's a problem with the drains.
The war was an enormous drain on the country's resources.
Well, that's it. 18 months' work down the drain. Well, that's it. 18 months' work down the drain.
That's why this country's going down the drain.
Drainage.
Drainage.
A handful of pebbles in the bottom of a flower pot will help drainage.
A plan to improve the town's drainage system.
Drain board.
Drain board.
Drained.
Drained.
Suddenly she felt totally drained.
I felt depressed and completely drained of energy.
Draining board.
Draining board.
Drain pipe.
Drain pipe.
Drain pipe trousers.
Drain pipe trousers.
Drake.
Drake.
Dram.
Dram.
Drama.
Drama.
The great traditions of ancient Greek drama.
The award-winning TV drama Prime Suspect.
A new drama series for Saturday nights.
A drama critic. A courtroom drama.
A lavish costume drama.
He plays a Russian spy in the comedy drama Sleepers.
Young actors coming out of drama school.
Our drama teacher.
Maggie's life is always full of drama.
Accidents, burst pipes, and other domestic dramas.
A night of high drama.
The drama of the moment.
Brian always makes such a drama out of everything.
Dramatic.
Dramatic.
Computers have brought dramatic changes to the workplace.
Universities have suffered a dramatic drop in student numbers.
A serious accident can have a dramatic effect on your family's finances.
A superb goal by Owen earned United a dramatic victory yesterday. A superb goal by Owen earned United a dramatic victory yesterday. Some of the most dramatic events in American history happened here.
The dramatic scenery of the Grand Canyon.
The Amateur Dramatic Society.
The dramatic arts. She needed a stunning dress to help her make a dramatic entrance.
Tristan threw up his hands in a dramatic gesture.
Dramatically.
Dramatically.
Output has increased dramatically.
3 years on, Jack's life has dramatically changed. She leaned forward dramatically.
Dramatic irony.
Dramatic irony.
Dramatics.
Dramatics.
Rex had no time for her dramatics and left the room.
Dramatis personae.
Dramatis personae.
Dramatist.
Dramatist.
Dramatize.
Dramatize.
A novel dramatized for television. Why do you have to dramatize everything?
This incident dramatized the difficulties involved in the project.
Dramedy.
Dramedy. Drank.
Drank.
Drape.
Drape.
He took off his coat and draped it over a chair.
Mina lay back. Mina lay back, her arms draped lazily over the cushions.
Jack emerged with a towel draped around him.
The soldiers' coffins were draped with American flags.
Draper.
Draper.
Drapery.
Drapery. A table covered with drapery.
A drapery business.
Drapes.
Drapes.
Drastic.
Drastic.
NATO threatened drastic action if its terms were not met.
Drastic cuts in government spending. Drastic changes are needed if environmental catastrophe is to be avoided.
The size of the army was drastically cut.
Drat.
Drat.
Draft.
Draft.
Can you close the window? I'm in a draft.
A sleeping draught. Mick took a long draught of lager.
Draft board.
Draft board.
Draft excluder.
Draft excluder.
Draftsman.
Draftsman.
Draftsmanship.
Draftsmanship.
Drafty.
Drafty.
A drafty old house.
Draw.
Draw.
Katie had drawn a cottage with a little stream running next to it.
She asked the little girl to draw a picture of the man she'd spoken to.
Keith was drawing a complicated-looking graph.
I've never been able to draw very well.
Can you draw me a map of how to get there?
I have been asked to draw your attention to the following points.
A dark house can draw attention to the fact that the house is empty.
He didn't want to draw attention to himself.
The case drew international attention. It would be unwise to draw firm conclusions from the results of a single survey.
The author draws a comparison between East and West Germany and the North-South divide in England.
The report draws a distinction between various forms of healthcare.
His remarks drew an angry response from Democrats.
The movie drew praise from critics.
What first drew you to teaching?
Beth felt strangely drawn to this gentle stranger.
The festival is likely to draw huge crowds.
I drew a lot of comfort from her kind words.
Plants draw nourishment from the soil.
She refused to be drawn on the subject.
She drew away, but he pulled her close again.
The boat drew alongside us, and a man appeared on the deck.
I arrived just as the train was drawing into the station.
Maria grew anxious as the men drew closer. Christmas is drawing near.
Black drew level with the other runners.
Bobby drew a chair up to the table.
Hussein drew me aside to whisper in my ear.
A carriage drawn by 6 horses.
An ox-drawn cart. Ali reached into his pocket and drew out a piece of paper.
Maria drew her gun nervously and peered out into the gloom.
Adolescents often use drugs simply to try to draw a line between their own and their parents' way of life.
I don't mind doing some gardening, but draw the line at digging.
Some say 50 is too old to have a baby, but where do you draw the line?
I just want to draw a line under the relationship.
My eye was drawn to a painting on the wall.
Hughes had drawn $8,000 in cash from a bank in Toronto.
How long have you been drawing unemployment benefit?
I'll be drawing my pension before he'll ever get around to asking me to marry him.
She drew a deep breath.
Ruth paused to draw breath, her voice barely hiding her excitement.
He lit his pipe and drew deeply. The winning ticket will be drawn at the Christmas party.
We drew lots to see who would go first.
He drew the short straw and had to drive everyone to the party.
They drew 3-3. Liverpool drew with Juventus. England have been drawn against France in next month's game.
All his investigations have drawn a blank so far. Festival goers began to drift off as the evening drew to an end.
I'd rather draw a veil over what happened last night.
The dog bit her so hard that it drew blood. The dog bit her so hard that it drew blood.
Barker sought to draw blood by mentioning his rival's weakness of character.
Suddenly, she drew back, startled.
She peeked into the box and drew back in horror. The government drew back from their extreme standpoint. The government drew back from their extreme standpoint.
He drew down the final $25 million of the loan.
In October, the nights start drawing in.
We should use the demonstration as an opportunity to draw more supporters in.
Despite himself, he found himself being drawn in by the man's warmth and ease.
He tried to draw her into conversation.
She found herself drawn into a disagreement between 2 of her neighbours.
The cold water is heated as it is drawn off.
His work draws heavily on learning theories of the 1980s.
She has 20 years teaching experience to draw on.
I drew on my savings to pay for the repairs.
Winter is drawing on. As the journey drew on, he started to feel tired.
She just needed someone to draw her out and take an interest in her.
There are two major themes to be drawn out in this discussion.
The final question drew the meeting out for another hour. Draw up a list of all the things you want to do.
He was asked to draw up proposals for reforming the law.
The contract was drawn up last year. A taxi drew up at the gate.
He drew himself up and said, "This has gone far enough."
Ruth sat, knees drawn up under her chin, and waited. The match ended in a draw.
England has been selected to play Germany in the draw for the first round of the World Cup. Congratulations, you have been entered into our £100,000 prize draw.
It is hoped that the new art gallery will be a big draw for visitors.
Maltravers took a long draw on his cigarette.